Welcome along. I'll declare the Performance Policy and Partnerships Extraordinary Meeting open. We have apologies from Councillor Kett, Mrs Coote, and potentially also Councillor Clark as he's a submitter, and also welcome along Councillor Abbott on Zoom. Would somebody like to second? I'll move the apology. Seconded Councillor Scout. Put that all in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Against? Carried. There is one minor late item that we need to accept, and that is the submission of Mary McFarlane. It was received after the publication of the agenda, but it's easy enough for us to incorporate it. Would somebody like to move that that's accepted? Councillor Lewis, Councillor Amundsen, thank you. I'll put that all in favour.
Aye.
Against? Carried. A couple of alterations to the schedule. Submitter number 21, June Trotter, who was on the original schedule, I think, as our last submitter, has said she no longer wishes to speak to her submission. Obviously, her written one still stands. There are a couple of alterations from people who were either going to be on Zoom and are now attending, or were attending and are now on Zoom, but that's fine. There might be the occasional period where we have an adjournment if we start to run ahead of time. Otherwise, here we go. We're grateful to all those people who have taken the time to submit. Just looking towards the back and wondering if Mr. Kennedy has arrived as yet. Could be a slight delay to our start. Dave Kennedy from Invercargill Public Art Gallery. That's submission number 113. Not here yet. Right. Excellent start. We'll begin with an adjournment and wait for his arrival. Hopefully he won't be too far off.
Come on, Chair.
If the second submitter was here, I'd move to that. But I don't see Noel in the waiting room as yet. No, he won't be far away. It's usually pretty punctual.
Yeah. Extraordinary Council. PPP. PE.
Oh, Noel is in the waiting room. We might jump ahead to Noel, actually.
The previous.
Okay, councillors, I'll reconvene the hearing. Noel, I thought you might be ahead of time, and thank you for your punctuality. We've got a gap, and wonder if you would mind starting a little early with your submission. You with us, Noel?
It may be on silent.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I just have a little technical issue to
No
sort
problem.
out there. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak this morning. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome, everyone that's here. I think I've given you a fairly in-depth verbal, written submission, so I'm not going to dwell on a lot of talk this morning. But I just thought a few points that I'd run over, and then I'm free for questions. I've had quite a few conversations around the city with people, both ratepayers and visitors, and I've found actually being around the old museum building in the Queen's Park area very useful, meeting up with people that were wondering why the museum wasn't open, or just wanted to say something about it. And what I gained from talking to over 20 people was that the great majority of people are wanting council to get on with the project and get a building up and running again, so that they've got a museum they can visit. Quite a few people that live in nearby towns to Invercargill stated that. They said, you know, we'd come to Invercargill if the museum was open. So, and another bit of feedback was that people seemed to think that building big and new was the best option, and some of them didn't really understand why the old building couldn't be or wasn't a good option. Not that it couldn't be, but that it wasn't the best option or a good option. They didn't understand that, but so I don't think the message got across too clearly on that. But once I explained to them that it really wasn't the best option, they were quite happy with the, you know, to go ahead with something bigger. So there was also, I got my ear chewed by quite a few people that were concerned about the cost to ratepayers, and there was people that were on fixed incomes and in difficult times are saying, well, I just won't be able to pay it. So you'll see in my written submission the suggestions there that, you know, some form of rate relief, or the fact that you attempt to gain some greater amount of external funding so that all the burden doesn't fall on the ratepayer. I think that would be important. The three elephants that I see in the room to the whole matter is the Three Waters transition. I see in Dunedin there they're you know, going to spend quite a bit of money upgrading the water before they transition into the new authority, that all being that it goes ahead. And COVID and climate change, they're all unexpected things that could throw a left ball at you as far as cost and social harm. So, you know, if we had another big COVID outbreak and you didn't have people to come visit the museum in the year that it's due to be open, well, you know, could be an issue. So, but anyway, putting all those things aside, all the challenges, I think that you're doing a grand job of pressing ahead with the museum and the annual plan in general. And congratulations to the staff that have researched it well, to the board members that have listened and researched well and made good decisions. So well done, and let's make Tiuna a reality. That's my verbal. Open to any questions if you wish.
Thank you, Noel, and thank you for taking the time to make a submission and speak to it. I note that in your submission, and you just touched on it there in speaking to us, that you're suggesting that council looks at ways of providing rate relief for low income earners. I'd be interested in hearing what suggestions you have for those, bearing in mind that there is already a subsidy available under a national framework for people who qualify.
Yes, I'm alluding to the existing subsidy, and I'm actually a low income earner myself, so I'm in that group of people. And you know, unless I actually go and ask the council, is there a rate relief? It's not promoted, and I think there's a lot of people out there that are struggling and they don't actually even realise that they can get a rebate on their rates. And I think also it would be good if council would pursue the possibility, and I realise it's only a possibility, of actually increasing the rate relief. There's a lot of burden upon ratepayers from all sorts of directions, as we know, and it's not just the cost of the rates. It's everything to do with living these days. So, you know, maybe, I don't know how that process works or how it's reviewed, but I just suggest that would be worth investigating. That was my suggestion.
Cool. Thanks, Noel. The amount is actually set by government, but just to reflect on what you were saying, your suggestion is that we make sure there's additional publicity to make people aware of it.
Yes, and maybe put the word to the government that maybe it's time to review it again.
Cool. Thank you. Councillor Pottinger.
Thank you, Chair. Noel, this question is regarding Three Waters that you've submitted on. With the formation of these 4 new entities, do you have any fear that a future government, not necessarily this current government, may privatise these entities because they're all nicely bundled up now? Like currently there's 67 councils and the risk of privatisation is not even there. But when you've got 4 nicely packaged entities, a future government who's a bit short of cash may decide this is really good to sell. What's your view on that?
Yeah, personally, Councillor, I don't have that fear. I'm being told clearly that there's going to be things put in place so that that can't happen. And in fact, the argument is that the 4 entities will make sure that that doesn't happen. So that actually puts it at arm's length from central government. But I don't have any fear of that. So, and I actually welcome the whole process.
Now, the reason I ask that is any new government can change the rules, as is the government now. So, yeah, that's the reason I was asking.
Yeah, well, governments can also set rules. They can cast them so that they can't be changed.
Thank you.
I'm okay.
Thanks, Noel. Any other questions? If not, thank you, Noel, for your submission and for your time this morning. We appreciate it.
Got it. Have a great day.
Got it. Dave, welcome along. Come up, take a seat. Please, yes. Yep.
So kia ora koutou, I'm Dave Kennedy, I'm the current chair of the Invercargill Public Art Gallery. Both members in our board wanted to support the third option for the museum, the larger option. And I think we stated their reasons that we think that we should future-proof our facilities to make sure that they'll last for a good length of time. In the past, we've made decisions to, like the first original museum in 1941, intended to have an art gallery attached, and they ran out of money and didn't do it. Consequently, we struggled to provide that facility. And we also support the proposed change to reserve status of the History Reserve. But just in speaking a bit further in support of the larger facility, I just thought it was interesting if you look at the 4 well-beings that all local government have to apply. The cultural one is a really important one, and this ensures that the local community have got access to culture and arts. And this is something that Invercargill has actually kind of struggled to deal with over time. And I was just looking at cities of a comparable size to Invercargill or smaller, and most of them have quite a large facility to exhibit art. For instance, the New Plymouth, which is got a population a little bit bigger than Invercargill, it's got the Lie Centre, a connected art gallery. Whangarei, population slightly bigger than Invercargill, has got the Hunter Weiser Art Centre. Nelson is slightly bigger than Invercargill, they've got this Suter Gallery. And out of interest, their collection, art collection, when we had ours valued, the value was said their collection was similar in size and quality as, possibly better quality than the Suter Gallery. Our collection of art, Invercargill Public Art Gallery, has been, we've been told it's one of the more significant regional collections, and yet we don't have a purpose-built space to exhibit it. The Hastings City is similar size to Invercargill. They've got their City Art Gallery. Ponganui's got the Sargent, their population smaller than Invercargill. Timaru, 30,000, it's got the Eagle Tie Gallery. Ashburton's, not so long ago, had a purpose-built art gallery. Oamaru's got the Forester, and the school's got the East and South Art Gallery with a population of 10,000. So we understand that the ACI, the Art Centre in Invercargill, is still in a long-term plan, but it's some way off, and it's still doubtful whether that will go ahead, depending on finances and so forth. So we think it's really important that any museum facility has enough space and capacity to exhibit art. so that's why we support the larger building. We have to kind of make sure that the public have got a space suitable for exhibiting our collection. It's not only our Invercargill Public Art Gallery collection. We've got the Southland Art Foundation, and the Southland Museum also has a sizable collection of art. And to me, it makes sense that we make sure that the public of Invercargill and also visitors are able to see the wealth of our art taonga. So, and of course, in support of the new storage facility to be built in Tisbury, our collection is currently held in the Invercargill Public Library. It's only a temporary measure, and although we're really grateful to have it stored in proper climate controlled conditions, it is only a temporary space, and we'd love it to have a more permanent home where it can be cared for properly. Thanks very much. That's my presentation. Any questions?
Thanks, Dave. Councillors, it's open for questions. I guess your final comment, Dave, touches on the question that I was going to ask, and that was around the desire of IPAG to share that that storage space at Tisbury. That you see that as a useful solution, bearing in mind the constraints you've got at the archive now.
Definitely, and I mean with Hawakatui, I mean for a number of years now we've worked really well with the museum, and we see looking at our collections in the entirety means that we can often have kind of collaborations that enable kind of displays and things to use the wealth of our collections together. And I think our gallery currently is looking at getting online, digitising our entire collection so it's available to the public, and we're also looking at shifting our collection from Beehive, which is on the sort of cloud system that we use to catalogue our collection, and shifting it to the same one that the museum uses, so that there's some connections there between the two institutions.
Thanks. Councillor Pottinger.
Thank you, Chair. Dave, is it right you're opting for the larger museum? Yep. Cool. My question is, and it's probably a tough one at this stage, but it's worth asking, is how many square metres would you like allocated to art out of that? You know, they've sort of, in the plans and stuff, have shown how much would you expect to get your, obviously your premium stuff out there permanently?
Imagine probably the bigger idea. I actually can't remember the figure.
You reckon there is enough space with it?
Well, I mean, we'd always like to have more, and I think probably the way that we've been operating in Hawakatui has been kind of a little bit experimental. If you've got flexible spaces and you're changing exhibitions a lot, you can accommodate, you know, a lot of different kinds of exhibitions. It would be good to have elements of our permanent collection on display on a continual basis, so people can go along and see the quality of their art, but also have the potential to have auditory exhibitions or new and different exhibitions that may combine.
Well, I guess the reason for the question was we're going to be debating this option and which option we want, and is it big enough?
Well, from discussions that we've had in the past, probably what's there wouldn't be as big as we would want to exhibit art. So we think we want more space, and we also see value in having some art exhibited in the centre of the city. I think Hawakatui has shown just how many people sort of wander in it during their lunch times to see the art, and that may not be as easy if you have everything basically.
Okay. No, thanks for that.
Yeah. Sorry, I couldn't give you.
No. It was just had to ask.
Yeah. No, it's a good question.
Thank you. Any further questions, Your Worship?
Yes. I was just wondering about the wow factor in terms of their art here in the south, and I would say that Gore's got it over just about all of us at the moment, but in terms of the wow factor anyway.
Sorry, your question?
How do you feel about the Gore collection?
Well, I've actually worked quite closely with the Southland Gallery, and we often share collections and exhibitions that they've put on. But I'd agree, you know, we've never had purpose-built space for art. We were based at Anderson House, and Anderson House was a lovely building and a lovely atmosphere, but it was never built as an art gallery and had limitations. So it'd be lovely to have a space that was, you know, up there at least what Gore had. It has got much more. As I said, all those centres around Invercargill, similar size or smaller than Invercargill, have quite substantial art galleries.
Thank you. Any further questions for Mr. Kennedy? If not, thank you, Dave, for the submission from IPAG and for you for giving up your time to come in and present this morning. We appreciate it. Councillors, I'm just going to take a brief adjournment. We have an issue with the live stream, so we're going to need to restart it.
And no doubt once it's restarted, the fire alarms will be tested. It's just a test.
Anybody not catch that? There may be a fire alarms test. It is only a test, unless you smell smoke.